All right, this is Marco Palmero, founding director of Ulysses Investments. In this video, I want to share with you a couple of thoughts on our selection criteria for acquisition and how we are able to minimize risk before we actually enter due diligence itself. Now, first of all, we don't generally enter an acquisition like big groups or examples that you see here in the GCC area where people are just buying companies without doing due diligence and they're just acquiring businesses because they're fitting their criteria. We generally try to be very ruthless and selective in our acquisition process in our due diligence because we want to make sure we find good targets that are fitting our acquisition criteria. Now, how are we able to do that? Well, we break our due diligence process in three key steps. Generally, the first one is handled by my team and myself personally, where we filter targets down using our pre-crafted, pre-templated due diligence checklist. That allows us to filter targets quite aggressively because all the acquisitions or businesses that don't have these boxes in check, they're not good acquisition targets. The second step is the review of the board of directors. So all the acquisition that passed the first step are now submitted to the board of directors for approval. So they go through a second due diligence review, if we want to call it this way. And then, only then, the targets that are left will then undergo real due diligence that is undertaken by the external legal and accounting firm. So there's actually three steps that we go through to make sure the targets we're acquiring are actually the best ones in the market, and that has allowed us to filter acquisition down quite easily, starting, for example, from 600 here in Dubai alone and going down to 15 alone. So it's less than 3% of the overall targets that we had available when we started. So this is a step-by-step process that we follow and is actually pretty effective because it has allowed us to avoid mistakes along the way and avoid issues once we are inside of the acquisition, once we are dealing with all the steps that are necessary to complete an acquisition. And that has been pretty useful because if we avoid surprises later on in the process, we save a lot of time and we're able to bring a lot more acquisitions to fruition. So I hope that answered this question, and I'll see you on the next one.